Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Turtle Wins the Race Home-Based Business Chat podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello. If you're listening, hello. But, it's on YouTube, so you have to kind of watch it. Let's talk today about unsolicited advice and bad review comments. We all get them, right? And I lumped these two together. I was thinking unsolicited advice is one thing and comments on bad reviews is something else, but we really kind of react to them the same way. And before we get into it, if you're new here, my name is Kara Buntin. I have 3 Etsy shops. I have a website. I've been selling from a home-based business for 24 years. I used to do wedding cakes. Now I sell cake decorations online, blah, blah, blah. That's my bio. Real quick. I also have a public Facebook group that you can join in the description, and I have classes for other Etsy sellers, which you do not have to buy. Just keep watching the channel. It's free. All right. So let's talk about unsolicited advice. Now, I went and got myself some more tea because this is a subject that I think I will have to be careful with because I get a lot of unsolicited advice and comments, rude comments on YouTube. You guys should see the comments that I delete. It's quite amazing. I don't care about deleting comments. I'll just delete them. I hide people from the channel all the time. And I have no problem with that. There are debates about whether you should leave bad comments up, things that are rude. I don't think that you should because it makes it more comfortable and more pleasant for everyone if the conversation is productive. And I have had times when people left rude comments and then other people came in and tried to defend me. I appreciate it. Thank you. But I don't want to put you guys in the position of having to feel like you have to back me up. So I'm not interested in it. It just, if you can learn from something that somebody says, that's great. But if you feel like you have to defend somebody because of it, then I'm not interested in that kind of thing. So it goes back to the podcast about, kind of choosing your battles and setting limits. And the limit that I have is that if I have a questionable comment, I'll just delete it. And I think you should do the same thing. It makes the community a little nicer. It makes it more pleasant and people enjoy it more. So that's my goal. I want people to learn something, but I also want it to be someplace where you're not afraid to post. All right. So I guess that was kind of a tangent about rude comments, but we are going to get rude comments no matter what you do. And you have to develop a thick skin and just understand that people think that they can say things online that they would never say to your face. And they think that I know that they don't think they're being helpful. Some people think they're being helpful. And when you get advice from people that you didn't ask for, you have to kind of decide for yourself and evaluate, is it coming from a place of concern? Is it coming from a place of control? Is it coming from a place of this person is just sour grapes and doesn't like that you're being successful and they're not? There's a lot of reasons why people would make a comment about something. Generally, if you're getting unsolicited advice from friends and family, let's start with friends and family first, because that's, yeah, we all know we have those people in our lives who, and I talked about this before in one of the podcasts about Professor Know-It-All, who doesn't know anything about certain subjects. But when people don't know things, they feel very free to tell you everything about it. And when you have a business, it's no different. So if you have people in your life who are free to comment on anything that you do and they want to tell you how to run your business, just stop and think, okay, are they saying this because they're worried about me? That's your mother, right? And I know that people have said, I need a drink for this, right? When I say a drink, caffeine is the hardest I go, right? I never had this problem, but I know that people say that their parents are very much, when are you going to get a job? You have this little business and it's cute, but when we're worried about you, when are you going to get a job? Or your mother will send you articles about people who used to sell online and now they have a job, right? And that comes from, as a parent, that comes from a place of concern about your stability, like your financial stability. Nobody wants to see their kids, regardless of how old you are, nobody wants to see their kids struggle and to be unstable, like to have instability in their lives. So if you get those kinds of comments from your parents or your grandparents and people who are older than you in your family who are looking at you and not understanding that you might actually be financially stable, or if you're not financially stable and they know that, they're probably just concerned for you. So take it in that, take it in that space. I'm thinking of the word. I can't, my mind doesn't work right now. Um, take it in, just take it as concern. That's just concern. And it's not putting your business down. It's not saying you're not going to be successful. They're just worried that their idea of a steady income is to work for someone else. And that's not steady. You can get fired, right? Anybody can get fired from a job. You can get laid off. So there really is no guarantee of steady income unless you're a tenured professor somewhere. We won't get into that, but yeah, and remind them of that. You can say, look, I have to do this. I want to do this for myself. I'm doing fine financially. And if I was working for someone else, there's a lot of layoffs going on. So don't worry about me and I'm fine. But just address it in that it's coming from a place of concern for their children. And I hate to say this because before I had kids, I thought this was like the most condescending thing that people would say. You don't have kids, so you don't understand. If you don't have kids, you really don't understand. There's something that happens in your brain when you have children. And I know that there are people who this doesn't happen to because, for most normal people who are not, completely narcissistic, when you have kids, you're going to worry about them for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter if they're making $1 million. It doesn't matter. You're going to worry about something else about them. I worry about my kids all the time. And I've told my kids, I said, I worry about you constantly. It's just something in your brain, and they're both doing pretty well. They're both doing well. It doesn't matter because you're always going to think of something. So when your parents give you the, oh, when are you going to get a real job kind of thing, don't look at it as, unless they are narcissistic and they've always been mean to you. And there are those people. Don't look at it as they're being mean. Just look at it as they're worried about your stability and they're just your parents. They're just your parents, and parents are going to worry. That's just how it is. However, if you have siblings or cousins or friends who are not your parents, they don't have that chemical change in their brains when you are born. They don't have the same relationship as you. And yeah, they might be worried about you, but it's not the same thing. So when they talk, it might be coming from a different place. All right. Now, siblings are bad. I've heard people have some real horror stories about siblings. Friends can be really bad. I told you the story of the worst person in the world. There's a lot of worse people in the world in this podcast. I told you the story about the worst person in the world who was a frenemy of one of my friends. And I said, why are you friends with her? Because she wasn't her friend. So there are people who are going to be in your life who want to give you advice that is just meant to beat you down. And it's not there to help you. And I think that you know who those people are. And once you open your eyes to them and you realize that they're not your friends, you can just let that run off your back because they're not saying it to be nice. They're not saying it to be helpful. They're just saying it to be mean. So you have to evaluate, where is this advice coming from if it's from people that you actually know. Now, sometimes you will get someone who has some experience with running a business, or they have sold online before and they know something about it. And in that case, they might be actually giving you advice that they think will be helpful. And that's, like I said, you have to evaluate this stuff as it comes at you. So if you do have a friend who you know has your best interest at heart and they say, maybe you could do it this way, give it some consideration, but don't immediately run to change everything because of it. And I think that's the one thing that I see people doing, is that when someone says one thing, they run to change everything. And without thinking, like, does this make sense for my business? Does this make sense for me personally? And it could be that it will work, but it might not be something that would work for your specific business. So, you need to learn to evaluate, number one, what's the source of the advice? What's the source of the comment? does the person know what they're talking about? And where is the concern? Like, what's the concern behind why are they telling you this thing? If you get some advice that you think is good advice, then maybe you want to put it into practice. Maybe you want to try it out. That could work. And if it's something that you think is just kind of generic bad advice or just a catty comment, I don't know if I told the story. Hold on. I need a big drink of tea for this one. I probably told the story at some point, maybe in this podcast. I'm going to start repeating myself. It's just how that happens. Yeah, I probably did. But I had a person who was a relative and constant comments about my business when I was doing cakes, because they did not think that anybody should spend any money on weddings at all. That's it. No, you should not spend on a wedding. That's it. So every time I got together with this person for family events or whatever, there would be some snarky remark, and not just like snide, it's kind of a side comment. It would be like a direct, your business sucks and you're ripping people off. How's it going? Kind of thing. And I would walk into the room and it would be, how's the, just rude. So I finally laid into this person and chewed them a new one. And I said, when you got married, you had your friends bring food. You had your friends bring a cake. I mean, one of their friends made a cake. And I said, do you know how long it takes? Do you know how much work goes into that? And just the fact that you took advantage of people doesn't mean that you can then slam everybody else who wants to pay for it. And that's their money. They can buy what they want. So shut up. And I think I actually said, shut up. And I said it in front of the whole family. And they did. So sometimes you have to call people out. All right. But, a lot of times you can just avoid them. If it's a friend who is not a friend, you don't have to get together with that person. If it's a family member, sometimes you need to be direct and tell them to shut up. And that is perfectly fine, because if they're being rude to you, there's no reason you need to sit there and take it. Right? I don't know how I got on that topic, but I think it's just the idea of like, do you know this person who's giving you the advice or making a comment? And if you do know them, do you respect them? Where is their comment coming from? Do you respect this person's experience and ability to give you advice that would make sense and would be rational? Or are they just experiencing their own life and they want everyone to know it? And if that's the case, then you can just tell them to shut up. And I'm sure I've talked about that before because it just made me so mad. All right. Now, if the comment comes from someone who you don't know, for example, like in a review, and this seems to happen a lot, where people will say, I got a review and they said that the elastic in the bracelet was too thin. Should I go buy different elastic? Everybody else who reviewed it said they loved it. And in one comment. Now, the human brain, not only being programmed to be parentally concerned about your children, also tends to pay attention to things that are different. So we see things that are different and we latch on to that. So if you get all 5-star reviews and then you get a 3-star review, that one 3-star review is the one that you're going to pay attention to. And you should, to a certain extent, but it doesn't mean that you have to immediately act on everything in that 3-star review and change your whole business model. Don't do that. But the human brain sees that, and the human brain also will latch onto things that are negative a lot faster than things that are positive. And I think that we all have the experience of seeing that one bad review out of 100 good ones, and the one bad one is the only thing we can think of. And you forget that there's 100 people who have said they loved your products. That one bad review from one person is going to ruin your month. And that's a natural human reaction. So don't beat yourself up. Oh, I'm terrible. That's a natural human reaction because that's how the human brain works. You pay attention to things that are unusual and you pay attention to things that are negative. That's just how we're wired. So when you get a bad review, you need to decide whether it's valid or invalid, whether it's justified or unjustified. And I wrote a blog article on my wedding cake blog like years ago about this, because wedding vendors, just in general, not just bakers, but wedding vendors in general, are very review oriented. And your business kind of runs on referrals. So if you get that one bad review, it can really screw you up. But people are just terrified of reviews in the wedding industry, and the bad reviews will ruin your month. It'll ruin your year, and like literally, it'll ruin your business. So people are very focused on reviews, but if it's one comment from someone, you need to evaluate it. You need to say, well, maybe this makes sense. Is there a grain of truth in this? Or is this person just crazy? And sometimes they're just crazy, right? All right. Let's talk about the crazy people. I had people, and also reviews. The one good thing about Etsy is that you have to be a verified buyer. You have to have bought the thing to leave a review. A lot of the wedding websites where people leave reviews, you don't have to. I could go on a wedding website, and I'm not going to name their names because they're ridiculous. There's this one guy that wrote an article showing how he created a business. He just made it up, and he went and registered it on a wedding website, and then he wrote fake reviews for it, and it was awarded their Bride's Choice Award for the year because of these fake reviews. The business didn't exist. They don't verify anything. So people can go on there and leave fake reviews that are completely ridiculous. And I had people do that. And just recently, a wedding coordinator who I used to know when I worked, I know her still, but I used to know her when I was doing cakes. She called and said, I know this competitor has been leaving reviews for my site. Is there any way that you can help me figure out who it is? Because I had helped her figure something else out once because somebody used the same username. And I was like, I don't think so. If it's a fake account, there's nothing I can do about it. But her game plan was to get a whole bunch of friends and family to go on the review site and leave good reviews. So it just becomes a game. And don't change your business because of one bad review. Because it's a game to some people, and some people just never give a good review, or they're trying to get a refund. They're trying to keep the product and get the free they're trying to get something out of you, so they leave a bad review with all kinds of things, or they're going through something personally and they're taking it out on you. All right. So first of all, was this advice, review, criticism, comment, whatever, was it delivered in an angry way? If you have had contact with that person and they were angry to begin with, or they're disgruntled about something with the transaction and you can understand what it was, the background, you need to evaluate it with that lens. If a comment is just delivered in an angry, just spouting off, and that happens every now and then, you'll get somebody that just goes nuts and leaves you a review that you're like, what the heck? And you have no idea what they're talking about. You might not need to pay as much attention to that because something's gone wrong in their day and they're just lashing out at everybody. They're taking it out anywhere they can take it out. They're taking it out. If it's somebody who is mad that you didn't give them a refund or you didn't give them a discount or whatever, life happens, I'm going to turn my page over here because I do have notes for this. There's a lot, but you basically have to think, did I get this comment in a review and is there anything valid in it? It's the same thing as looking like the people. When people give you advice, do they know what they're talking about? Have they run a business before? Have they had this kind of problem in their business and handled it? But if they haven't, then you can kind of disregard it. You might think about it and say, well, maybe there's some truth to what they say. I could try it. But you don't have to take any advice that anybody gives you. But it's the same thing with comments and reviews. Is there any validity in this comment? And if not, then don't worry about it. I don't know what it is about the starfish molds. I think it's because the legs, and a starfish can measure a different thing. I have a starfish mold that is 3 inches across. I also have one that's 2 inches across. I have links to both of the different ones in both listings. I have photos with them next to a ruler in both listings. And yet, for some reason, The starfish mold gets so many comments about, I wish it was a different size. One person said, I wish it was the size that it looked like on my computer screen. I am not kidding you. What? Okay, that's the kind of comment that you can't even respond to that. That's the kind of comment that you just let go and you write thanks for the review and you move on. All right. Now, if somebody is giving you a comment that you might actually benefit from, there might be some validity to it. So yeah, think about it. And I actually had someone who I changed the packaging because of the comment that they left, or I think they actually sent me a message. And they said, because I have some things that are, wafer paper is not real paper. That's what I make the products that I make from. It's like an edible paper. It's made from potato starch. So it's basically a sheet of starch and it cracks. If you bend it, it cracks. And I put things in little plastic bags and put it in a box, not an envelope that will bend. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's going to prevent them from bending. But I started selling these little insects that have little skinny legs. And I sent one guy a set, and he wrote back and said some of the legs were broken. And even being in that box, I don't know, maybe they got knocked around against the sides of the box in the process of transferring it. Maybe he broke them. I don't know. It's possible that he took them out of the envelope and broke them. I don't know. But he said some of the legs were broken. And I would think that you should put them in a better packaging. And I'm thinking, he probably broke the legs, but there might be some truth to that. So I started thinking about it, and I actually found some cards, like postcards, that I could have my logo printed on and my website information printed on. And I put the like how to use the wafer paper sticker on the back of them. And then I put it into the clear plastic bag. And then I put the wafer paper in there after that. So it serves two purposes now. It keeps them stiff. It keeps that plastic stiff so it doesn't bend and it won't crack the wafer paper until they take it out. And so if somebody says, oh, it was broken, they probably did it on the way taking it out of the bag. But it prevents them from moving around, and it's like a little advertising thing for me. And it has the care instructions on how to use them, the use instructions on the card. So it can't get separated. It can't get lost. It's great. So that comment was actually pretty constructive. And he was probably angry because the legs broke, but I don't know if he did it. Who knows? That's not the point. The point is that sometimes a comment actually is useful. So if you get unsolicited comments, unsolicited advice, you don't have to throw it all in the dumpster, because some of it might be justified. And so that's the third part of this, is like, do you know the person or not? Was the advice given in anger? Okay. And the third thing is it justified or unjustified? And this is part of the decision process. If you get comments based on people not understanding your full process, or you get advice about, oh, you should do this, and they don't understand that that's really not something that you can physically do, then just let it go. Just say, thanks for the advice. Or if somebody, I've actually heard of Etsy sellers getting messages from other Etsy sellers who say, this is what you should do for your shop, and I noticed that your SEO is wrong. Nobody asked you. All right. So just hit the spam button and send that to spam. But if people are giving advice that seems like it might be justified and the comment is justified, then maybe you should think about it. Don't just immediately dismiss things out of hand. But on the other hand, don't go and change your whole business because of one comment. And you need to make sure that the person who's giving you that advice understands the entire process and not just the final product. And I know that the marmalade guys probably think I'm insane, because I'm constantly saying, you know what, you guys should add this to marmalade. You should do this. And if there's a way that you could do this, and it's always something that's really complicated. And I have no idea about programming. And I always say, I don't know if this is even possible, but it would be really good to put this in, right? It's generally not possible because it's so complicated, the way that you would get the information. And when I make the keyword lists for Etsy in my digital shop, I have an extremely complicated process that I suggested to them. And I was like, you guys really need to do this. And I'm like, I don't know how you would do it. And I sat down and figured out a way to do it. And it's extremely complicated. So there's no way that they could do that, I don't think. They might be able to. They probably could. But is it going to be worth their time? I don't know. Anyway, this is the kind of thing that I'm suggesting something to another business owner, and they're like, yeah, okay, you don't understand the process behind what we have to do to get the data that we have. So thanks for the advice, but we're going to, it's not possible. I get advice. I mentioned this at the very beginning. I get comments and advice on my YouTube channel all the time. And I usually just hide them because they're stupid. But I get comments about the most recent one. And if you said this comment, you know who you are, is about this microphone. And they're like, that microphone is stupid. And you look stupid. And I'm just being honest. Okay. Anytime anybody says, I'm not to offend you, or no offense, but that but means, yeah, it's going to be offensive. But they said we could hear you fine before you started using that. Okay. Here's the thing. You could hear me fine because I spent an hour and a half or 2 hours adjusting the sound, syncing audio tracks and video tracks, spending money on different microphones to try to get the sound okay. And it still was not as good as I thought it could be. And it was irritating and it took a lot of time. But now I have a setup which you cannot see because it's behind me, or it's like it's in front of me. It's behind you, right? Literally. You can't see the setup that I have now. And this microphone is part of it. So when I get advice like that, I just hide the comment because it's dumb and the person doesn't understand the process. They just see the final product. They don't know what goes into it. So when you get people who are saying, oh, you should make this and you should make that. And like I said, I do it too. I told the Marmalade guys all the time, and they're probably rolling their eyes like, yeah, you can't do that. But if somebody gives you suggestions that you just know are not something that's feasible, or it would take too long, or it would cost too much, just ignore them. Just say, thanks for the idea, and then ignore them. Because people don't see the process, they just see the final product. So ignore that. So basically what you have to do, just in life in general and for your business, is you have to give yourself permission to stand up for yourself and to understand where you need to spend your time to get the result that you want, and to not take every random piece of advice that people throw at you, no matter where it comes from. So sift through all the comments, because some of the comments will have valid points. Throw out the crap, because a lot of it will just be garbage that you can't use. But, block and delete. Block and delete is a powerful thing. Push that spam button if Etsy sellers are sending you unsolicited advice. What the heck? That's just rude. If you have trouble with people in real life, don't hang out with them if you can help it, But it goes back to setting boundaries for yourself and not being as reactive. So if somebody gives you a piece of advice, don't immediately jump to implement it, and don't immediately say no. And that happens a lot too, where I will suggest something to somebody about their shop and they're like, no, that didn't work. And I was like, how did you, there's extremes on both ends. Extremes are always bad. Extremes are always bad. I will just say that. I'm very middle of the road. Okay. Don't change your business for one review comment. Don't change your video setup, which people can't see, for one comment about a microphone. It's just silly. And leave me any comments. Post your thoughts. I will be back next week, and I don't know what I'm going to be talking about, but I might actually get my husband to come on here and talk about having a spouse that works at home. I don't know. I might not like what he has to say. I'll talk to you guys later. Give this video a thumbs up. See ya.